The Princess of Bern Banner features characters from Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. We have Merlinus, Melady, Dieck, and Guinivere. We'll be going over each of their stats and skills, plus talk about some build ideas and general playstyles. Merlinus will be the 4-star focus unit for this banner, and he will be demoted to the 3 to 4-star pool after the banner ends. The 40 summon spark mechanic is also in effect, so grab those first summon tickets from Forging Bonds if that interests you. Merlinus is going to be one of the strangest additions to the Fire Emblem Heroes cast. He will be a cavalry dagger user, which makes him a really unique demoted unit already. However, his talent is for sure going to immediately turn a lot of people off from using him. Merlinus has a whopping 50 base HP, 20 base attack, and no, that's not a typo, 35 speed, 31 defense, and 27 resistance. If you just saw his speed, defense, and res stats, then Merlinus may have been quite an interesting dagger unit. However, 20 base attack is the lowest attack stat in the game. We are almost done with 4 years of Fire Emblem Heroes, and we've now gone all the way back to 2017 when we had launch units with awful base attack stats like Azamo, Odin, and Felicia. Merlinus having 20 attack may be a nod to the fact that he is a merchant that doesn't really fight, but that is so laughably bad that unless we get some kind of new skills in the future, that would be hard pressed to recommend using Merlinus for actually killing stuff. I will say that 50 HP is the highest for a Cavalier, and it's paired with good speed, defense, and res stats, so he should be able to take some hits. Merlinus will be by far one of the weirdest units to be added to the game. Sadly, as the 4-star demote, Merlinus won't have the craziest skills on offer, but there are some good things in the bargain bin. He does not have anything brand new, but he will have the Smoke Dagger and Wings of Mercy. Reposition is a good assist skill that can go on any unit, so personally I would be fine getting Merlinus down the line. Last, he has Distant Guard 3, and this isn't a support skill to have on a low rarity summonable unit. So for builds and playstyles, again, if you're expecting Merlinus to be a killing machine, you could make it work, but unless you give him the broadly fan with maximum default support, the only thing Merlinus would have over a dagger user with an actual attack stat is his 3 movement. If you can get a bonfire proc or iceberg proc, then sure, the guy can take out a squishy low defense mage or something, but I would really not suggest using Merlinus for KOing stuff mainly. Luckily, as a dagger unit, he can make some support builds work. The upgraded Smoke Dagger inflicts -6 debuffs to all stats on foes after combat, so you could use a Wind Sweep or Water Sweep set to apply debuffs for the team. You could just use Darting Blow and perhaps double Savage Blow skills for some AoE chip damage as well. With his high base HP, Merlinus can be a Panic Ploy user, or you could use him with Even Pulse Tie, which is for that specific niche of stopping instant special builds. For backline support, Merlinus could use the Tamari Dagger with something like Forge Defense and Res 3, and you probably want a Res Boon and Refine. Maybe add some Ploys or Sabotage skills as well. If you want more defense and res on the weapon, you can borrow the Goody Boot from Winter Cecilia and maybe go for a Rally buff bot with a Rally plus Ruse combo. I am going to mention Disarm Trap for 8th raids as well. Honestly, I'm sure someone will build Merlinus with a full-on damage set, but if you're not going to go all out, he will probably be relegated to a support/tank build. I thought George was going to be our meme unit for 2020, then we got Zane, and now we got Merlinus. 2020 ain't over yet. Next we have Melady, who will be a Lance Flyer. For her stats, she has 40 HP, 40 attack, 33 speed, 41 defense, and 17 resistance. She does have an attack and defense super boon, and it is noteworthy that Melady has the highest attack for a Lance Flyer and the highest defense out of all flyers. She's essentially the Gen 5 version of Trevant and Altena, however she does trade some HP for more speed. Now, 40 attack and 41 defense is pretty nice, but 17 res is definitely not so great, so do be careful around dragons and mages. With 33 base speed, you could invest in it for some more fun builds, and with all that attack and defense, Melody will be fine in a physical damage duel. For old skills, she has Bonfire as her special, no surprise there. Her A skill is attack and defense solo 4, and another +7 attack and defense is certainly not gonna hurt. For her weapon, Melody has a new inheritable lance. The Instant Lance Plus is a 14-might lance, and if the user initiates combat, it grants +4 attack and defense while also preventing a foe's follow-up attack. Basically, this is a mini sturdy impact weapon, and it's the same ability the Valentine's weapons had for this year. We did not have a lance version, so this is technically a brand new weapon. The biggest part of Instant Lance is having that follow-up prevention. This can help out slower units on the player face and not get doubled, although this is countered by no follow-up and other guaranteed follow-up effects. You can make some neat mixed phase builds on units who may run quicker pose and stand skills, and this is also a good weapon to go with Melody's attack and defense solo A skill and the new Sacred Seal version. One class that cannot use impact skills are Cavaliers, so Instant Lance could be an interesting option for them. I wouldn't say this is the deadliest weapon, but it's more about survivability. Next, Melody is introducing Wyvern Flight 3. This is a new flyer base skill that I believe is limited to only sword, lance, and axe flyers. At the start of combat, if unit speed is greater than the foe's speed minus 10, inflict penalty on foe's attack and defense during combat equal to 50% of the difference between defense stats before combat. Wyvern Flight is basically the defense version of Pegasus Flight, however it does have a more generous speed advantage of plus 10 speed instead of plus 7 speed. Now these two skills are some of the most complicated skills to use effectively because you need to meet two stat comparison checks. First, you need to have more speed than the enemy, and Wyvern Flight gives you a plus 10 speed advantage, which is nice. However, next you need to compare defense stats, and at a max defense of 14 defense, you would inflict minus 7 attack and defense on the enemy. The important thing to remember is that both the speed check and the defense check happen before combat, which means any in-combat stat boosts are useless here. For example, Melody cannot make use of attack and defense solo when comparing defense stats. She has to go off of her visible defense. This makes both field buffs and debuffs very important for Wyvern or Pegasus Flight. It also means merges and summoner support are both valuable assets to have because those add flat stats to the unit. This also applies to Blessing stat boost. For the most part, Melody isn't a good spot to run Wyvern Flight. However, the biggest downside is that it's a lot tougher to get a 14 defense difference against physical damage dealers, and if you fight a major dragon, the minus 7 attack debuff may not be enough with her very low res stat. With Wyvern Flight, you need to invest in both speed and defense, and even then your results may vary from fight to fight. This skill wants support from ally buffs or debuffs, and even deciding on which stats to increase for Melody is difficult. If we invest in flat defense with a defensive fine on her weapon and fortress defense, then even if she wins the speed check, Melody may not double often, if at all. If you invest in speed to win the speed check and secure more doubles, then you may not have enough defense to even make the skill worth using. Honestly, it's a very finicky skill, so you do need to put some thought into builds and team composition when using it. For example, even though Melody has attack and defense solo 4, it would be more optimal to run attack and defense solo 3 as a sacred seal, so that you can use fortress defense and res during the A slot for an overall increase in stats. If you don't want to mess around with Wyvern Flight, you could just use quick repulse and run double attack and defense solo skills to be a physical wall on both phases. Melody can focus on enemy phase builds just fine, and there are other lances like the Flowing Lance if you can get it, or the Barrier Lance and the Vanguard Lance for pure res and defense increasing weapons. Since the Ninja Banner is still around, she could honestly use the Ninja Yari from Navarre. Melody is the highest attack lance flyer, and the ninja weapons add plus 4 speed, so with a speed boon, Melody would hit 40 speed already. Tack on some Swiss Sparrow skills and you have a super scary brave attacker who can use Desperation or Dive Bomb, plus the new attack and defense Rain C skill. While Melody will be another 5-star only lance flyer, she does have a unique enough stat line. Sadly, we just have so many free to play options, and that list keeps getting bigger. Next up we have Dieck, who is an axe infantry unit. I thought for sure since we just got Ninja Han, who started off the fax axe units for Gen 5, Dieck would have blasted past her as a 5-star only unit. However, for stats he takes a slightly different approach with 40 HP, 40 attack, 35 speed, 36 defense, and 25 resistance. He is an attack and res super boon, both which can provide interesting build options. Dieck isn't the next super fast axe unit, but as we will discuss, he has a very nice all-arounder stat spread. 40 attack is great, highest for all axe infantry, and 36 defense and 25 res is honestly just fine. I say this mainly because of his unique weapon, which we will get into in a little bit. For all skills, Dieck comes with Luna, solid special for any enemy type. He also has no follow-up, which may seem a bit odd on a unit with only 35 speed, however it still works for Dieck. He then has Threat and Attack and Defense 3, which is a very powerful C skill when it does land. It goes well on non-armor march armor units, but Dieck can use it just fine if he's duking it out with other melee enemies. Dieck's weapon is the Tiger Roar Axe, which is a 16-point axe that has direct specials. If Dieck initiates combat, or if he's within 2 spaces of an ally, he then gains plus 5 to all stats, and also if the foe is 100% HP, he also gets a guaranteed follow-up attack. Wow, so Tiger Roar Axe is a very solid weapon with 3 great effects: faster specials, more stats, and a free follow-up. It is always active on the player phase, and for the enemy phase, Dieck just needs to be near one ally. If you want the free follow-up, you do need to fight a full health target, but that isn't very hard to achieve, and it means Dieck's lower base speed isn't as much of an issue. On the player phase, he still has great offensive power, even against faster units, and will only be stopped by other no follow-up skills since he himself has it. With faster specials and plus 5 tall stats, Dieck is just gonna be a fun unit to use. As for his new A skill, we are finally getting close defense 4 if foe initiates combat and uses a sword, lance, axe, dragonstone, or beast damage, then grant plus 8 defense and res and neutralize foes bonuses during combat. I am surprised it took this long for this skill to arrive since we've had tier 3 dual stances for a long time now, In comparison to something like Bracing Stance 3, Close Defense 4 is purely for melee tanking. It has slightly more defensive res plus buff neutralization, but Bracing Stance 3 has guard, and it works against ranged foes too. You can get these effects from other skills and weapons, but I think a pure enemy phase tank may like the defensive res boost against ranged foes as well, even if you aren't using a distant counter on a weapon. Still, you could use Close Defense 4 with a guard weapon since those do not have HP conditions. I think one of the main benefits of using Distant Defense 4 was that it completely shut down Blade Tomes. For Close Defense 4, besides Levantine, the Blade melee weapons aren't as widespread, but you can still mess up weapons like the Huge Fan, which partly rely on field buffs to activate. In terms of playstyles, Dieck is super flexible. Tiger War Axe is a fantastic weapon for player phase and enemy phase build, which is partly reflected in his base kit. The 3 follow-up, plus 5 attack boost, and 40 base attack make Dieck a threat on the player phase, while Close Defense 4 handles enemy phase attackers. No follow-up is great for both allowing Dieck to double and prevent enemy skills that double him, and he also gets plus 5 defense and res from his axe, so the guy does get fairly tanky. If an enemy ends up in threatened range, Dieck gets a plus 5 attack boost while inflicting minus 5 defense, so that should be enough to one-shot a weakened foe, or Dieck gets a nice advantage on a full health target. I would say Dieck is one of those units that is very hard to mess up. If you want to run distant counter, that's perfectly fine. He doesn't need quicker pulse while maintaining respectable speed. He could run Times Pulse or Heavy Blade to combo with his accelerated specials. If you want to copy to Barn, Dieck can run Desperation with Gale Force. I would say that since Tiger War Axe does grant plus 5 speed, you can even build for the close call type speed setups. Dieck has great attack, defense, and res for this kind of set, so you can focus on just getting him extra speed, which is easy enough to do with the speed and res solo seal. Tiger War Axe does have positional requirements for the enemy phase, so maybe solo skills aren't the perfect choice. They can work, but there are other options like smoke debuffs or stance skills. If you really like Dieck and wanted to merge him up, he should be a very fun unit to use for all types of content. Last up, we have Guinivere, who is Zephio's younger sister. She is going to be a blue infantry mage, and she has some neat traits for a mage. Her stats are 36 HP, 35 attack, 40 speed, 16 defense, and 38 resistance. Typically, high res mages are not super fast, but Guinivere has a lot of points in speed and resistance while maintaining a good attack stat to work with. She has an HP and speed super boon, but her base HP and defense are obvious weak spots. Guinivere wants to stay very far away from any physical damage, but she will be ready to duke it out with any magical damage threats. For old skills, Guinivere has Iceberg, no surprise with all that resistance. She then has attack and res push 4, low attack and res, and joint drive res. Oh my, we are just stacking all the attack and all the res here. Very anti-magic base kit, and it only gets better. Guinivere's tome is Aureola, and it's a Fortnite tome that is effective against magic foes, aka tome users. It also grants plus 3 res, which means Guinivere naturally hits Fortnite resistance. Aureola has the same condition as Tiger War Axe, so it's easy to understand. If Guinivere initiates combat or if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she gets plus 5 attack, speed, and res, disables adaptive damage skills, and then restores 7 HP to herself and allies within 2 spaces after combat. Good lord, what a weapon. We have not seen mage or tome effectiveness since the kitty paddle, but Aureola will let Guinivere really duke it out with other mages very well. A 1.5 times attack multiplier against green mages will come out to 1.2 times attack when we factor in the weapon triangle disadvantage, and she just has so much resistance from her kit. Guinivere is also very fast, which is super nice to do other fast mages, and she disables adaptive damage, which means she can freely attack into and wall off dragons. The 7 HP heal after combat is just the cherry on top, but Guinivere does have low base HP, so this effect is appreciated for the multiple fights. Honestly, this weapon with that high speed and res styling gives Guinivere a neat niche among mages. Guinivere is one scary unit if you're a magic damage dealer. She is pretty fast, she has super high res, and if you're a fellow mage, she gets free extra damage. With just her base kit, Guinivere can hit up to 57 res, and if you include the minus 3 attack from the low skill, that's effectively 60 resistance. This is on top of getting up to 45 speed with no other speed increasing passive skills, and her attack is solid as well. Since Guinivere disables adaptive damage, she can easily tank dragon attacks, and with her healing from Aureola, she can offset the recoil damage from the push 4 skill. I would say her base kit is totally fine to keep, and you could add a speed increase in seal like speed and res solo. If you're worried about the positioning condition, then go with Swift Stance or even a Bond Sacred Seal. If you think Guinivere has enough res, you could add more attack and more speed increasing skills like Swift Sparrow or the attack and speed push 4 variant. Guinivere may struggle using Desperation since she heals 7 HP. However, if you run Fury 4, that inflicts 8 recoil damage, so if you can get under 75% HP, Guinivere will stay there. I would run Desperation if you need to take off physical damage threats safely, but low attack and res is great for completely messing with pure magical damage enemies. You could run Steady Impact to maybe survive one physical counterattack, but that's still somewhat risky. There is also the Mystic Boost B skill, which would heal another 6 HP after every fight, plus it disables Wrathful Staff as well. Honestly, if you're just focusing on fighting magic damage threats, I would just keep low attack and res for the straightforward debuffs and buff neutralization effects. Ploys could be nice, but it's very hard to not just keep during drive res. For the most part, Guinevere should be used for fending off any magic damage foe, and she can likely one-shot hyper offensive mages who don't have high res stats. With her high speed, she can also deal good damage on other unit types, but any physical damage hit is going to send her packing very quickly. Guinevere is an interesting anti-mage / anti-magic type unit. I think Ariella is a cool weapon, and it pairs very nicely with her stat line. That's going to be it for this banner breakdown. Coming up next, we have a Grand Hero battle for Gaul. I hope you like Lance Flyers because he's going to be our 4th reward Lance Flyer for the year. Let me know what you think about our new heroes, and good luck on your summons. I'll be back soon with another video.